Tueswednesday. Tueswednesday. Again, another name I have not seen. Thank you for asking this question. With so many graphics, why do so many graphics describing guns, including multiple examples in MythBusters, show bullets in flight with the case and primer still attached? Just for those uninitiated, this is a bullet. Like a bullet is like shaped like this, and the case and the primer is a brass casing that comes around the back of it, and this is filled with powder, and that's the primer. And when you hit that, it lights the powder, and the bullet leaves. What they're asking is, a lot of graphics they see on television, the bullet is both of these things. And clearly it ticks them off a little bit. Is this a lack of understanding on the part of the designer? An oversimplification for the layman? Or something even more simple, like that was the graphic that they had? I will choose the middle one. Yes, it is an oversimplification for the layman. Science communication is about getting the idea across, not all the facts. I know that sounds weird, but sometimes the facts can get in the way of the understanding. And the scientists and the engineers are super, super obsessed with the facts. That's their job. The facts are the water that they swim in. But when you're introducing a new concept, you gotta limit the amount of processing power that the new person is doing to receive the information. And when you show them just a lead, oblong object, it's not immediately obvious to them what that is. And then you're not doing your job as a science communicator. I recognize that it may hurt a little bit to show the wrong version of a thing, but that's the part of the fact that doesn't necessarily matter. And again, I know all sorts of arguments can be made on both sides of this equation, but I am trying to land an idea in my audience's head. I'm trying to do that in the same way a comedian builds towards a punchline. I've learned so much about building towards a punchline from watching Chris Rock and watching Chris Rock talk about comedy, because I think I've said this before, but like he's always talking about how most comedians have great jokes, they just don't know how to set them up enough so that they hit as hard as they should. They leave money on the table. So for me, when I'm telling a story and trying to get a fact across to you, I will write out the first pass, and then my goal is to make the movement from the beginning of me explaining to your understanding to be as linear as possible. I don't want to break along the way going, by the way, we're showing half a bullet, but none of that matters. None of that matters when it comes to the concept, in my opinion. So I have very little issue with fudging reality within an explanation to get you to the scientific understanding of the thing I'm saying. I'm not saying that you're lying. I'm not saying you're telling untruths. It's just that you may elide certain specific details in the interest of information transfer. Okay. I think that's a pretty reasonable explanation. Shakes the Clone, hi again. I know I've answered your questions before. Shakes the Clone says, as a neophyte prop replicator, I am overwhelmed trying to navigate the Replica Props Forum. Any tips on how to search the site for specific threads? I never only use a website's own search function. What kind of crazy noise is going on out there? Anyway, so if I'm on the Replica Prop, let me zoom out for a second. You're a neophyte prop replicator, and what you're describing here is you're overwhelmed trying to navigate. Any tips on how to search the site for specific threads? Yes, use Google. I use the RPF's search function all the time, but whenever it doesn't cough up something that's highly useful or right what I'm looking for, I bust out of the site and go to Google, and then I search the RPF site using Boolean terms on Google. Boolean. You can look it up. There's some very simple things, if you don't know about that you can do within the search bar of Google of your browser to achieve slightly better results, including you can search for a specific term, but only within a site. And that's one of my most primary ways of searching stuff. A lot of websites' own search tools are hamstrung or just not very sophisticated. You know, I don't know whether they're like code from GitHub or something, and I don't even know that that's a good or bad thing. I know that I'm often dissatisfied searching a site under its own thing. And there are other sites, and like Prop Summit, there's the Ghostbuster fan pages, R2D2 Builders Club, Wall-E Builders Clubs. With all of those, sometimes you can't even search unless you're a member, and so Google is a great way to get that base information. But I want to talk about being overwhelmed by navigating, because I'll tell you how I gather the information. You said, any tips on how to search? So I'm really going to assume, based on the phrasing of your question, that you're doing research using past builds on the RPF, looking for, I'm going to guess, aesthetic details, information about the prop, but also hints and ideas about replicating and building. In those cases, my first pass is almost like a fire hose, my first pass at research. So, for instance, I bought this ejection seat 20 years ago. There's no folder in my creative projects folder for ejection seat. It's before I had built my creative projects folder. So I made one. And then what goes in there? Everything I can find on the A7 Corsair and its ejection seat and the various parts that make it up. And I'm just dumping every PDF, every image I can find. And I'm also, commensurate with loading this stuff into a folder using Adobe Bridge, I am also have an Evernote document up in which I'm logging my search terms. I really do often keep lists of my search terms for stuff that's quite difficult. And I'm logging the sites that I find, and I'm logging the information that I find, and I'm making sure the key pieces that I want to know are chronicled there. And so the first 2 hours, 3 hours is just that. It's just like shoveling, right? It's panning for gold. So the first bit is a shovel full of dirt goes in the pan. And then I open up that folder and I'm looking at it, and already I can see there's multiple categories. So I've got a digital rendering of the A7 Corsair cockpit. I've got a real picture of it. I have close-ups of labels. I have Douglas Aircraft logos and labels. Each of these goes into separate folders. And then the build starts to take some shape for me. The RPF is just one of the places I go, frequently one of the best. If anyone has a hint, the photo bucket watermark makes me absolutely insane, because I think I remember a couple of years ago literally signing up for photo bucket and not being able to remove it from any of the images that I was literally paying to try and remove it from. I also, as a side note, there are folks out there who have done builds and posted their builds on some forum and then see other people stealing those images, and that pisses them off. And I totally get that. I really get that. However, sometimes a person's solution to that will be to put a giant watermark of their shop logo across the middle of the photos that they post. And I gotta tell you, that doesn't work. You're not transmitting information in a way that's useful. And I don't think you're doing it on purpose. I understand you want to protect yourself, but at what cost? You're on the forum to share information, I would submit. And if you're putting up an image that I can't really see because I just see letters across it, there are battles you can win and battles you can't. And in my personal, when I post up a photo, if I see it elsewhere, that's the cost of business to me. I'm more interested in everybody else having a nice, clear picture of the stuff that I was building. If you are overwhelmed by navigating the RPF, sometimes there are threads that are 70 pages long, 80 pages long. Doesn't take that long to burn through one of those whole threads and really understand and familiarize yourself with a prop build or the drama that happened around it. It's funny, I used to have friends that I saw regularly. We'd talk about, whatever sort of character dramas were going on the RPF, but I'm so long removed from that. I don't really pay attention to any of it. Good luck, Shakes the Clone. I'd love to hear if any of that works for you in a couple weeks. Let's see what's going on here on the... Okay. Thank you for watching. I wanted to talk to you about tested membership. The tested members are a key community that we find really, really remarkable. That's very separate from tested and from YouTube. The tested members, they buy each other memberships during our live streams. So if you're wondering whether to become a member, watch one of our live streams and someone may just give you one. It is hard to overestimate how much the tested members actually make possible on this channel. They give us a lot of wiggle room. They give us a huge amount of feedback.
That's a member right now.
Thank you so much for enjoying your membership. Description for everything you need to know. And for all the members out there, thank you, thank you, thank you.